Night in the Woods. Unlike the other two games that will be featured in this video, there's a good chance you've never heard of Night in the Woods, which makes sense. It's an indie game, it was funded on Kickstarter, and it didn't get the massive following that indie games like Five Nights at Freddy's and Undertale received. And part of me thinks that's a good thing. Not only does it prevent the game's fandom from devolving into a toxic wasteland of Rule 34 cases and other horrific mockeries, but it allows those who come across the game to feel like they've discovered something special, which they definitely did. Night in the Woods tells the story of Margaret May Borowski, a 20-year-old college dropout who relocates back to her hometown of Possum Springs, which has been struck by the closure of the coal mines and stagnating economy. She meets up with her old friends, including gloomy but intelligent Beatrice B. Santello, hyperactive troublemaker Gregory Greg Lee, and Greg's quiet but modest boyfriend Angus Delaney. Now living in her parents' attic, May uncovers a dark mystery that leads her into the nearby woods, forcing her to confront a terrible secret the town has hidden for decades, involving not only the town's mine, but also the recent disappearance of her longtime friend Casey. Night in the Woods is odd in that it doesn't appear to have any real narrative direction until the third act. May and her friends essentially just do random things in and around the town, with clues of the overarching plot being dropped very occasionally. In fact, if you read the game's Wikipedia page, you'll find that the majority of the events in the first two acts are completely omitted. The stranger thing is that despite this seeming lack of direction, I still absolutely loved the first two acts, as well as the third. However, the game's unconventional story structure does make it a bit difficult to discuss without spoiling anything, though I'll do the best I can. The characters and storytelling are nothing short of phenomenal. Night in the Woods managed to make me deeply connect with the four main characters in an astonishingly quick amount of time. An achievement made even more impressive by the fact that the game is only about 10 hours long. No matter who plays this game, I guarantee that they will be able to empathize with at least one of these great characters. May in particular is a deeply complex character while still being highly relatable. This isn't much of a spoiler, but it is eventually revealed that May suffers from depersonalization disorder, a mental illness that causes her to often view things and people as not real, or as shapes as she describes it. This illness slowly makes itself more apparent over the course of the game, and as someone who is well versed in mental illness due to family experience, I'm well glad to see it so accurately represented. The Last of Us. The Last of Us is one of those games that makes you question whether video games are a fine art form. It makes you wonder about humanity, about what we're capable of, and what someone is willing to do to keep themselves and the ones they care about alive, and if there's a cost for survival that's too high for even the most morally bankrupt person. In short, it's an amazing game. The Last of Us tells the story of Joel, a former carpenter from Austin turned smuggler. In September 2013, an outbreak of a mutant cordyceps fungus ravages the world, transforming its human hosts into cannibalistic monsters. In the 20 years that follow, most of civilization is destroyed by the infection. Survivors now live in heavily policed quarantine zones, independent settlements, and nomadic groups. Joel, now living in the Boston quarantine zone, is one day approached by a rebel militia known as the Fireflies. He is hired to smuggle a teenage girl named Ellie out of the quarantine zone and to their headquarters in Salt Lake City, though he is not told why. Over the course of the journey, Joel and Ellie slowly bond while fending off infected, hostile survivors, and more. The Last of Us is a third-person action-adventure survival game and places a heavy emphasis on stealth and crafting, and when it comes to gameplay, The Last of Us soars high above many others in the genre. The tight, responsive controls and brutal melee animations make every encounter feel like a desperate fight for survival rather than an effortless curb stomping like so many other games. The game's crafting system is also very user-friendly, and you won't need to Google crafting recipes every 5 minutes like Minecraft. The campaign of The Last of Us shines most in its portrayal of the relationship between Joel and Ellie and how it evolves throughout the game. I would even go as so far as to say that The Last of Us has the deepest and most well-developed relationship between two fictional characters I've ever seen in entertainment media. Watching Ellie slowly and realistically erode the ice surrounding Joel's heart is nothing short of a joy to experience. The Last of Us is one of only a handful of games that has actually been able to make me tear up. Even more impressive is that it did so within the first 15 minutes, followed by several more times throughout the game for various reasons. Even after 7 years and 3 full playthroughs of this game, I still tear up every time I get to these select scenes. The game's voice acting is also stellar, with Troy Baker once again giving 110% as Joel. Ashley Johnson does an incredible job as Ellie, easily convincing me that she was a 14-year-old girl rather than a 29-year-old woman. The fantastic performances were definitely helped by the game's stunning graphics and motion capture technology, which allowed me to quickly become immersed in the established world. In conclusion, The Last of Us is one of the best games I've ever played, and will go down in history as a milestone in gaming like Ocarina of Time and Grand Theft Auto. The Walking Dead, a Telltale series. I must have a thing for zombie games where you father a little girl, although The Walking Dead is in a completely separate vein from The Last of Us. The Walking Dead is an episodic point-and-click survival game that is largely attributed to single-handedly reviving the, at the time, dying genre of point-and-click adventure games. The game was released in an episodic format over the course of several months. Each season has 5 episodes with a total of 4 seasons. The game's first season, which I will be discussing in the most detail to avoid spoilers, tells the story of Lee Everett, a native of Macon, Georgia, and former university professor convicted for murdering a state senator who was sleeping with his wife. After the outbreak of the zombie apocalypse frees him from custody, Lee eventually finds and becomes a father figure to Clementine, an 8-year-old girl whose parents went away for the weekend in Savannah, leaving her with a babysitter who turned into a zombie. Lee and Clementine soon encounter a family from Fort Lauderdale. This group consists of Kenny, a commercial fisherman, Katja, Kenny's wife and a veterinarian, and Kenny and Katja's 10-year-old son, Kenny Jr., more commonly known as Duck. The 5 then join another survivor group led by Lily, an engineer formerly stationed at the Robbins Air Force Base. Lily's group consists of Larry, her aggressive and judgmental father and a retired army commander who knows Lee's past, Carly, a quick-thinking regional news reporter who is also aware of Lee's crimes, and several others. Together, the group must battle the undead, other survivors, and sometimes even each other to survive. On its surface, The Walking Dead may not sound particularly great or even original, and I didn't think so either at first. The thing is, this game makes a point of clearly showing how inherently flawed humans are, and that when it comes down to it, humans are fully capable of being more monstrous than any zombie. Of course, virtually every zombie-based piece of media now copies this, but it was somewhat novel at the time. The Walking Dead is literally the only game I've ever played that made me care about every single character on a deep emotional level. And care about doesn't mean like, as I absolutely despised many of the characters. Not because they were poorly written or had bad voice acting or animation or anything like that, but because the writing was so good that it made me see them as real people that were also despicable human beings. The same applies to characters that I liked, but obviously in reverse. Exhibit A, Clementine. Clementine is easily one of the best written and developed characters in all of entertainment media. From her introduction in episode 1 of season 1 to the finale of season 4, Clementine has been able to connect with me more deeply than some real people. Her transformation from an innocent, kind, frightened girl to a hardened, reserved, deeply scarred woman is nothing short of incredible, and you as a player are completely sold on her personality all the way through. By the game's second season, I became so deeply invested that I felt more like I was living through someone than playing as them, much like how many people feel about characters like Harry Potter. Honestly, there is no way I can even remotely do her character or any character in the game justice through words. You're just gonna have to play it for yourself.